And
with that, we're live.
Pause.
With that, we're live, guys. Which nut would you reach for first?
No.
Because there was that Three's Company moment, if ever there was one.
No.
Come and knock on my door. We've been waiting
We've
for
been
you.
waiting for you.
With
the kisses my hands and Three's Company do.
Come and knock on our door. Grab a nut if you like. So you guys caught us. We were talking about hi and happy Thursday. Happy is a word that still exists in vocabulary. We were talking about peanuts because my lunch today was this tiny little bag, and it's not even finished yet, of honey roasted peanuts. And
Yeah.
and Brooklyn said the last nut he would grab would be a peanut, and I can think of a lot of nuts that I would grab before a peanut. But hi, everybody. Yeah, put in the chat your least favorite nut. Because I'm very curious. Peanuts are definitely. I think peanuts, they're a workhorse. You know,
Yeah.
they don't get a lot of credit.
I'm not fond of almonds that much either. I like walnuts. Not crazy about almond. My favorite nut, I think, is the cashew.
Oh,
The lightly salted cashew. Lightly salted cashews are great. Pistachios are great, right?
Yeah. I'm a pistachio fan. Cashews are probably the best. Although, give me a macadamia. I don't know. I feel very fancy. Remember when we were kids and those Monolai, like the commercials for that? It was like the guy from Magnum PI, I think. It was like a rich, like affected voiced man who would open the thing of Mauna Loa macadamia nuts. Do you remember?
No, I don't remember that.
Anybody in I think cashews carry our legumes too. I'm not positive, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. I don't know. There's a whole legume nut thing. I don't know. But see, thank you. Tesla.
There's a nut in the White House, by the way.
A lot less of the White House than there was. But yes, he is a fucking certifiably insane cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs nut job, batshit bananagrams, insane madman. Who, by the way, he is, yes, high cholesterol in those wine nuts. Donald Trump is casually talking about deploying other branches of our military, not just the National Guard, on American soil. Just casually, like, I can do that. And when he says he can do that, he plans on doing that. So that's fun.
Well, how about the casual craziness that he's decided that he wants to resume nuclear testing, which we haven't done in over 30 years, since 1992, because the other jackasses are doing it. Like, I'm old enough to remember when my mom was like, are you going to jump off the roof if your friends tell you to jump off the roof too? I'm like, no.
And the thing
Did
is,
he never learn that lesson?
Yeah, well, are you kidding me? Have you seen him? He saw a melted circus peanut and he was like, I want to look like a melted circus peanut too. No, the thing is, the brilliant Amy McGrath pointed out, they're not. They're not using warheads. They're not testing the nukes. The last 25 years, the only country that has actually tested a nuclear weapon is North Korea. They're testing the delivery systems and all of the other stuff affiliated with it.
Yeah.
They're not testing the actual nukes, but he is wants to test the actual nukes for the first time since 1992. Why? Because he's running out of distractions for the Epstein file, but also because he's a 5-time draft dodger who has absolute and utter disdain for our troops, who has this giant toy box now where he's like, well, I'm going to use a nuke. And that's what it's about. It's if I use a nuke and I tear down the White House and I erect the giant ark in my fucking name, then I mean something, then I am somebody, that I matter. That's what it's all about. If I can make the military do what I want them to do, bend them to my will, put them in American cities, summon them to Washington, D.C. so my fat ass can tell them they're fat, then I have value, then I matter. Because he knows he doesn't, and because he knows he doesn't have any value, he has to do this shit.
It's kind of offensive. It's more than kind of offensive. It is offensive. It is extremely offensive to me that he is using our military. He's abusing our military as if they were like toy soldiers, like the little green toy soldiers out of his toy box. And like you said, he's a draft dodger, number one. Number two, he's Mr. Suckers and Losers.
Yep.
Well, And number three, this is the thing that's really appalling to me, is that he keeps giving these highly political speeches to our troops.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah.
That's, have some respect. Have some respect for the office. Have some respect for the servicemen and women who are defending our country with their lives. He's assuming that everybody in that audience, unless they're handpicked, unless Stephen Miller is going through and making sure every one of those soldiers behind him is MAGA, you know. How dare you? How dare you give such horrendous, ridiculous, politicized speeches to our service people?
Well, remember, they told them part of the whole reason they were summoned, the top brass, the admirals, the generals, the top of the top of the top. They were told not once but twice at least during that whatever screed that if they didn't like it, they could leave. That's what they said. So that is what they're trying to cultivate. And by the way, it is also by design. He has so much disdain for our military that he would love nothing more than to get it to the point where it is only people who are willing to serve him, where it is only people that will commit acts of atrocity in his name, people that will kill American citizens for him. He would very much like that. First of all, he doesn't have any respect. He doesn't understand service. He asked John Kelly at Arlington National Cemetery, where John Kelly's son is buried, what was in it for them, not just because he didn't understand it, but because he actually despises it. He has a disdain. How he wouldn't do something so weak, so beneath him, as to lose his life in service to something bigger than himself. So what he's doing to our military is contorting it and bending it into something that he wants, something that serves him, because they can't answer to anything bigger than him. They can't answer to country. They can't answer to democracy. They can't answer to freedom. They have to answer to Donald Trump. So he would love it if the generals and the regular soldiers and the enlisted and the officers who didn't agree with what he was doing left. Sure, go ahead. And if you don't like me standing here and politicizing all this, you don't like me attacking the Democratic Party, bye-bye. That's what they want. That's what they're building. And that's why they're also privatizing the Department of Defense and letting some fucking freak who thinks he saw Amelia Earhart's head in a cellophane bag on the bottom of the ocean. Oh, you don't know about this? Oh, I'm going to go off.
What?
I'm going to go off. So remember, did you hear about how some anonymous private friend donor of Donald Trump's donated $130 million to our troops?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's not anonymous anymore. His
Who
name
was
is
it?
Timothy Mellon. His name is Timothy Mellon of the Mellon.
I know that name.
He's
Yeah.
Andrew Mellon.
That's right.
Carnegie
Yeah.
Mellon, that fortune. He made his bazillions in railroads, but by abusing people who worked for him and by doing union busting, breaking anti-union work and cutting costs and all the things and not, following protocols and all safety and all that. He's another piece of shit. He's also a whack job. Okay. So the backstory here on this guy, I went down a rabbit hole about this guy because I was like, who's this Timothy Mellon guy? There's not been a real picture of him since he was young, kind of attractive, whatever. It was like in the 60s or 70s. Anyway, this is where it gets crazy. This shit jumps the shark. Okay. So this guy saw that there were these explorers who wanted to go and find Amelia Earhart's crash site. They were going to do this whole expedition to find her, and he is an aviator. He flies planes, so he was like, I want to go on this expedition. I'll give you $1 million. So this weird, eccentric bazillionaire living in some, I don't know where, corner of Nebrahoma is like, I'm going to go with you, and we're going to find this crash. And so they go. They don't find anything. He flips out and says, I can't believe you guys said you didn't see anything. I saw Amelia Earhart's head in a cellophane bag with reams of toilet paper on the ocean floor, a severed hand. I wish I could make this shit up. And then sues them, loses not once, but twice in court, where the judge is like, you're out of your fucking mind.
It sounds like a Mad Libs thing.
Oh, but don't worry, because this is the guy who just gifted Donald Trump, the military Donald Trump would like to make his personal police force. He just gifted them $130 million, which, by the way, will not fund the military. It's another test balloon. It is Donald Trump doing what Donald Trump does.
It's $100 per service person, I think.
Yeah.
That $130 million. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not about the money. It's about him pulling away, degrading, destroying yet another standard, yet another guardrail where our military is not funded by private citizens. Because when you start opening that gate, that is bad. That is dangerous. You imagine, like, here's our military sponsored by My Pillow, and My
Yeah.
Pillow is like that's fucking insane. And
Yeah.
that's why it is a big red flag. But also the fact that this dude is off his rocker, and that who knows what it opens the door to, but I just feel like that's insane.
So is he
I'm
just
going
he's
to
just buying
follow him.
influence just like Elon did then?
Yes, exactly, except that this is deadly force. Deadly, deadly force that he's already saying. He's not joking, he doesn't joke, he is saying he's going to unleash on our cities against our citizens. So you've got your privately funded, sponsored by his billionaire buddies with their own weird bones to pick with you name it, fill in the blank,
Yep.
on our streets, and they answer to Donald Trump. That's, to me, that feels problematic.
So my Substack this week may or may not be a little incendiary. It asks the question, is it time to wait? Why we need to why we still need to talk about Hitler? And it's because, right? This past week I was watching this thing on Netflix about Ed Gein, who is he's like that serial killer that Psycho was based off of, Norman
Oh,
Bates.
oh,
Yeah,
oh,
fascinating. If you get a
okay,
chance to watch it, it's 8 episodes and it's binge worthy. When I tell you it's binge worthy, like you will want to keep watching this thing. So set
okay,
some time aside if you plan on watching it.
okay,
Anyway,
yeah,
it features a guy playing Alfred Hitchcock, who, did the whole Psycho movie. And so
yeah,
he shows his wife the movie. And afterwards, she's like, you won't get anybody to watch this. They won't want to watch this. This is brutal. This is horrible. Nobody would ever want to watch this. And he says she's dead wrong to say that people won't want to watch it. I'm reading. Our audience lives in a world in which God has been banished. They live in daily fear of nuclear annihilation. They have stared quaking, minds numb, at the sheer magnitude of the evil that was the Nazi Holocaust. Seeing for the first time in history what human beings are capable of when the moral compass is off, our audience has found a new monster. That monster is us, right?
mhm,
So what he's saying is that, audiences had already been at that point desensitized to a lot of the cruelty that normally would make them not ever want to see something like Psycho, which, by the way, by today's standards, Psycho is,
yeah, nothing,
PG,
yeah,
at the most.
right,
Um, but that got me to thinking, like, people are hypersensitive about don't ever compare this person to Hitler. And I get it. You don't want to use it for the guy who, flips you off and or calls me the N-word, right? He's not Hitler. He's just a racist. He's a bigot. Hitler is
mhm,
bigger. I get it, right? But Hitler didn't start off as Hitler. Hitler didn't
right,
start off as the master of the gas chambers. And, he started off like smaller, right? He started off radicalizing crowds of people and then bigger crowds and demonizing fellow citizens, and telling and conditioning people in their minds to accept atrocities committed to their fellow citizens in the name of nationalism, right? So, yeah, I get it. Like, don't call just any rando Hitler, right? But what's the point of having an example like Hitler if we can't use him as a freaking red flag warning sign when we see something very similar to it, right?
well, that's an excellent point, right? Because while history may not repeat, it certainly does rhyme. And what we have at this point in
Good one.
2025, what we have the benefit of, which is fucked up to say this, but we do have the benefit, at least, unlike what they had or didn't have in 1937 Germany, is that we have the ability to look to the past directly, immediately, all the time, because we have technology, we have social media, we have all of these tools at our disposal where we can look back to history and say, no, this started this way. Look, we are starting to go down the same path. We are already down the same path. We are at this point that they were at here in Germany, but they didn't have the access to the
Right.
kinds of information, because these things had happened in other countries around the world. They'd happened throughout the course of history. They'd happened in neighboring places where they lived too. But they didn't have the tools that we have now to say, this is what happened there. This is what we can do to safeguard ourselves to make sure it doesn't happen here. We have that benefit, good or bad, whether that is the origin story of how we've ended up here or not, we still have it. So that, again, one of the problems with their handling of the pandemic was there was nothing to really look back to that they could say, let me use this as a path, as a guidebook for how to navigate this now. So they fucked it all up
Oh
because they
wait,
didn't have.
except for the guidebook that Obama lleft behind
Well,
for
there's that.
Trump.
Right. Well, right.
Let's talk
Exactly.
about that.
Trump got rid of it. But it, like, when people start getting precious about not comparing where we are now to what has happened throughout history, when the parallels are so obvious and so clear and so perilous, then I think you're doing everybody a disservice because you're ignoring history. And if you do that, then you are really truly doomed to repeat it. Timothy
Yeah.
Snyder is the perfect example, because Timothy Snyder uses these.
Refresh my memory.
Oh,
Sorry.
Timothy Snyder is a historian, and if you don't, you got to get it. It's a quick read. It's called On Tyranny. He's got several books, but On Tyranny is like a pamphlet that is supposed to be. It's intentionally quick to read, and he's got, I think, 12 rules, and it's all about what has happened throughout history. And in each rule, he talks about how you stop it and what it means. And he calls upon the example of Hitler. He calls upon the example of Stalin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, history is rife with examples here. We should use those examples to fight what is happening to us now, because it is not the same. He is not literally Adolf Hitler, but every indication is that the same pathway that Hitler came to power and ended up with gas chambers is the path that Donald Trump is on. The basic ingredients of this shit stew are the same. Like you said, dehumanizing people, but also
Yeah.
de-incentivizing people, getting people disheartened, making them afraid, making them disconnected from each other, attacks on history, attacks on the truth, attacks on access to information. This is all part and parcel of the same shit stew that has happened throughout history. So I would caution people not to get so in the weeds on, don't call him Hitler. Call him Hitler only because, there's only one Hitler. But we cannot be ignorant to the things that have happened before, because we are in the middle of it right now. It's going to look different, but we have the advantage, of having the ability to look back and say, not here, not now, not on my watch.
I couldn't have said it better. People say never forget. Like, okay, what am I doing with that? Right?
Yeah.
If I'm to never forget, that means I'm keeping it up at the front. And then if I'm keeping it up at the front, then I see things that are similar. Like, let's give it for instance, right? Stephen Miller. I'm sorry. There's never been another living human being that more closely resembles what's his name? Goebbels?
Yes.
Yeah, Goebbels. Then I mean, that's the guy. He complains that his ICE agents are not being cruel enough. The whole family separation thing. And people they want to split hairs like, oh, but Stephen Miller's Jewish. Like, you know what? I know some self-hating black people too. It doesn't preclude them from acts of idiocy or cruelty. Not at all.
Right.
So aside from Stephen Miller, you have Donald Trump's obsession with power and with dictators. He desperately wants to be a dictator. He won't admit it out loud, or actually he did. He said he wanted to be a dictator on day one. He wishes that he had Hitler's generals.
Mm-hmm.
He slept with a book of Hitler's speeches on his bedstand. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he's said many things that were lifted right out of Hitler's speeches, like the whole thing about vermin and poisoning the blood. And, like, I get it. You don't want to be called a Nazi. So why are you constantly doing and saying Nazi things, right?
Yeah.
Why are you making yourself short of that Nazi salute? Why is everything you do so Nazi parallel? So,
Right.
no,
Yeah, it's absolutely the truth. I mean, it's interesting because we have the policy, I would put in air quotes, that mirrors, what Hitler and other dictators have done. But we also have physical, literally physical embodiments that mimic each other. Donald Trump is building himself a ballroom in the style of the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. Okay, that is exactly what Adolf Hitler did. Donald Trump is going to build himself a fucking Arc de Trump. That is also something Hitler wanted to do that didn't actualize because they had to test the soil, and by the time that
you
it
mean
was all
the Arc de Triomphe, like from Paris?
correct, which the Arc de Triomphe actually has its roots in Napoleon, and so you could tie the Arc de Triomphe to not the greatest things either, right? Like this is also
Right.
dictator shit, the small
Yeah.
McCain's dictator shit, and this is what. And by the way, guys, don't snooze on this. I think Donald Trump is going to find a way to make sure that whatever it is that honors him is taller than the Washington Monument. I know that is a controversial, seemingly hyperbolic thing to say, but it is
You're
the
right.
most Donald Trump thing in the history of Donald Trump. Why?
Yeah.
Shouldn't something that honors him be taller than the thing that honors George Washington, the thing that nothing in Washington, D.C. can be taller than? Why should Trump, who just disbanded the commission, the bipartisan, independent commission to check a president's ass on these kinds of constructions, why would Donald Trump abide by that? He won't, okay? He won't. So don't
Yeah.
snooze on that. So it's not just the philosophical stuff that echoes Hitler and that echoes Nazism. It is the literal stuff that he is doing. He is telling the American people right now that the enemy is within. The enemy is within.
Yeah.
Hitler did that. To your point, vermin poisoning the blood. But he's going further. He's already got 60,000 people incarcerated in camps right now. 60,000 undocumented people. Some of them are probably not undocumented people. 60,000 right now. And they're building more prisons. They're building camps all over this country that are also privatized for profit. We can get into that all day long. But all of this, it is almost verbatim the path that Hitler took, the path that Nazis took, and the buildings that Nazis wanted. And to tell the American people who the enemy is, and it's not from beyond our borders where his priorities lie because he can make all these deals. It is the American people, and is why they want to crush dissent.
He
And
said that recently too.
Yes, very recently. He said it many times. And it is
Yeah.
also why they have identified what they call Antifa as a terrorist organization. And by the way, what do they do with what they identify as terrorist organizations? They blow them up in the water without any due process or without any intelligence or oversight. So don't think that a privatized U.S. military funded by Amelia Earhart's head is in a bag at the bottom of the ocean freaks is not going to start doing that kind of extrajudicial killing here on American soil against the enemy that comes from within. I mean, this sounds crazy, but it's not.
Did you hear that Kristi Noem said that they are not arresting or detaining American citizens?
I mean, they lie. My friend, they lie. They lie like they lie.
I mean,
like
it's been
their
over
love
100.
language.
It's been over 170 U.S. citizens documented. We have most of them are on video. Have been captured. Hey, so and so is a U.S. citizen. They're not even listening. Into the van, disappeared.
No. This is the thing. They lie like they breathe, Lynn. They do. So they all lie. Mike Johnson might be the most shameless liar to ever hold a speaker's gavel I've ever seen. And Newt Gingrich exists, okay? Mike Johnson looks at the American people. He looks dead at the camera, and he says the Republican Party's done more for healthcare than anybody else in history. That is insane. Dr. Oz looked at the camera yesterday and said when asked what's going to happen to healthcare premiums, we have multiple studies from bipartisan organizations that say 115% average increase. He said that's not true. $13 increase. Lie. Carolyn Levitt, that chick's blood type is bullshit, okay? All they do. They not. If they are talking, they are lying. That's it. Like, this is the thing. It's shameless isn't even like we've run out of words to describe their complete and utter lack of any possible even adjacency to telling the truth, because the truth doesn't serve them. They know that.
Yeah, I'm gonna just so you know, I am gonna borrow that her blood type is bullshit thing. That was hilarious. It was very funny.
Thank you. It's like your mom joke. Like, your mom, right? Like, your mom is so fat, her blood type is ragu, like that. It's like a
I didn't mean to hijack this episode to talk about Hitler and Nazis, even though it is important, and I am doing a story time at 6:00 to expound on that further. But it is also critically important to continue to talk about, excuse me, the shutdown. Who's responsible? Republicans, and they have 3 different ways that they can end the shutdown, and 2 of them don't even involve Democrats. One is they can use the nuclear option, and they only need 51 votes for that. And 2 is they can negotiate with Democrats, and bring us across the finish line. But they don't want to end the shutdown.
No.
And they would much rather blame or attempt to blame it on Democrats, because right now they're flailing. They have nothing. Their big, beautiful bill, their big bullshit bill is a disaster. And once that hits the main populace, once people in red states started getting those letters in the mail saying their insurance is going from $889 a month to $1,900 a month, they're going to flip their lids.
Oh, yeah. And you couple that with the fact that they can, right now, stop what is going to happen to SNAP on November 1st. They have done this in the past. When we had the last shutdown, Donald Trump also owns, because he owns the 3 longest now. He actually passed himself. Congrats on that.
Wow.
They made sure that SNAP was funded. There is money to make sure that SNAP continues through a government shutdown, but they don't care. Mike Johnson said this yesterday. It was supposed to be a private call. He said, when those SNAP cuts go into effect, the suffering, the pain is going to go up to a 10, and then the Dems will cave. Think about that. Think about that evangelical motherfucker saying, if we have enough children starving, the good people, the ones with a moral center, the ones who actually want to serve their constituents, will cave because they can't handle other people suffering. But we could do it all day long. That's fucked up. And I would not ever ask a Democrat to kneel or to obey in advance to that shit, because they are looking to do and inflict more harm. They will not fund SNAP. There were cuts in that bill, and those Medicaid and Medicare costs will be wiping all that out. Sorry, the ACA subsidies will be going away. And they had no problem making the billionaire tax cuts for the 1% permanent. They had no problem. There was no pearl clutching over the budget. They didn't say, well, we can't afford that. But when it comes to our health care, that's expendable. And to me, that's a non-starter. And I'm proud of the Democrats. I am proud of them for standing their ground. This is what they have to do. And I know we talked about keeping this one tight today because you have another show to do tonight that everybody should watch, by the way. Storytime with BDD. It's one of the best shows out there. And I don't want anybody to sleep on that. It just is. You work really hard on it. And it's a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of information. So, we're going to keep this one tight today. But we have a lot of righteous indignation and outrage right now. And we should be. We should absolutely be. We should be naming this. I'm sorry. Starving children for political leverage. Starving children as strategy. To me, fuck you. Fuck you.
I would just like to add, I agree with you 110% on how the Democrats are standing up. And this is a principled stand. And I'm back at 100%. And we need the people, we need our base to back them too. We need our base to stand strong behind them and support them in this because it is principle. This is the difference between us paying, like I said, $889 versus 1900. Nobody wants that. I can't afford it.
No,
Most people cannot. There are people right now. I see jackasses online trying to shame SNAP recipients, saying, "Oh, why don't you get a real job? And why you get free food?" Like, dude, there's so many people who are working 2 jobs
hmm
and still qualify for SNAP because those fucking corporations, those greedy corporations, aren't paying them a living wage.
let me
So,
yeah, I just want to add to that before we go that like there's a lot of shame. There is a lot of shame in needing a helping hand. The shame is not deserved, it is not warranted, it is not earned, but it is very humbling and very, very difficult to accept that you can't do something for your family that is enough, that you need a helping hand. I can speak to that myself. I was employed as a paraprofessional. I worked 5 days a week with children as a job that did not pay a living wage, and I was a single mom at the time, and I did not make enough to cover the electric bill, to cover the oil cost, to cover my kids' needs, to cover their groceries. I needed help. I
yep,
needed a lifeline from the government. I was working my ass off, helping children, paying it forward. But this is what happens in this country. It doesn't matter. We pay for some things that we value. We don't pay for others, and that's one we were woefully behind. So I wasn't making enough money, but I was working, and my friends were donating groceries. They were leaving groceries in my car. And when I got the child tax credit that the Democrats are responsible for, that little lifeline, and I only got one of my 2 kids, that little lifeline, Brooklyn, I could cry all day long about what a difference that made. And the Republicans would look at me now and say, shame on you, you're lazy, you're entitled. Why do you want socialism? You want to get handouts? Get off your ass. I was not on my ass. I was working as a professional, as a paraprofessional with autistic preschoolers, doing my best, raising my 2 kids, and I needed a lifeline. And the child tax credit was that. Republicans don't care. That's the bottom line. They don't care.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry. That's
I have nothing to add to that. That was very well said. Very well said and heartfelt. That's absolutely right. And yeah, I
there's
just
no
wanted,
shame.
if you guys see anybody out there shaming somebody for being a SNAP recipient or whatever, tell them to fuck off. Fuck,
Exactly.
yeah, that's it.
And if you can, help with your local food banks. Help, you know, we this is the richest country in the world, and many of us have more than we need. And there are a lot of people, 1 in 8 Americans, 16 million children who are going to be hungry as of November 1st. So do what you can, and we're going to try to do everything we can to help too. We've been talking about drives for food banks, and the Siren is going to be putting some stuff together. So look for that, because we're not going to just sit quietly and let children starve. We're just not going to do it.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thanks, Brooklyn. Have fun tonight on your show.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.